Okay, gonna try this now, see if anybody's here. This is United We Stand's channel. Just see if anyone's around. Say something, say something, say something. Let's see now. Oh, okay. Okay, I can see we're running. I'm just going to tweet this out now. I'm just testing it. It's the first time I've done this off using this software. Can you see me, anybody? Maybe let's just try it for a couple of seconds. I can see people are starting to come on. If you can see anything or hear anything, could you just tell me, please? There should be like a speech option somewhere. Obviously waiting for the Champions League draw. Okay. Can anybody type in anything to say that they can see me? Or not really? Is there a speech option? No. Let's see now. Got it. Right, I can see now. Right, we're ready to go. Okay, fine. I'm just going to put this out now. Say on Twitter that we're here. And Michael Wall, I can see you, mate. Great. Right, so I can see that I exist here now. Let's show now. Okay, so I'm going to be sat here now for the Champions League draw, which will probably take 2 hours. If you've got any questions, please feel free to type them in. Perhaps better if they're related to Manchester United rather than, I don't know, physics or chemistry. And hopefully the draw will come through and I'll be able to give you information about the teams who United are getting. If a couple of you could just say that you can see and hear me all right, that will give me more confidence that we're doing things right here. Just gonna have a brew. Okay, I can see you. Yeah, we can see you, sadly. Loud and clear. Right, so if you've got any questions, send them through. And as we're talking, hopefully the draw will be made. I would like the following group: Barcelona, or if not, Valencia, a Spanish team, or I'd take Atletico Madrid because Atletico playing their new ground and it's really smart. But we'll be going there for the final anyway in May, so we can save a trip to the Wanda Metropolitano. The Group 3 ones, United of course are in Group 2. Long gone are the days when Manchester United were right at the top of Group 1, sadly. The Group 3 ones, PSV. The Group 4 ones are the ones which interest me. I'd love to go to Bern because I've never been to Bern. Not because I want to see young boys play football. I love the idea of going to Napoli, but we can't get Napoli because they're in the same group as us. Let's just see now. Who else? AEK Athens, that'd be good because the atmosphere would be brilliant there. It's a shame PAOK Salonika didn't get through. If Manchester United play in Moscow again, I'm just going to put the sunlight down a second. If Manchester United play Moscow again, then we've got a visa because visas worked during the World Cup and they will work again. But I don't really want to be going to Moscow again. Red Star Belgrade, that would be fantastic. I went to the derby there in 2015, and it was mental. Partizan against Red Star. It was dangerous. It was among the best atmospheres that I've ever experienced, but there was lots of fighting. It wasn't just isolated fights. It's like 50 minutes of people just whacking into each other. So I'm asking who you'd like. I've got a greetings from Athens, and that's Stoyan, and he wants AEK quite naturally. I'd like to go to Athens. It's a decent place. Be nice to exercise the memories of United's last visit there against Olympiacos in 2014. One of the worst nights in the club's recent history. Hoffenheim, a village in southern Germany, owned by a software company. I like going to Germany now. I'm not sure I'd like to go to Hoffenheim. Galatasaray is always a brilliant atmosphere there. Victoria Plzeň, that'd be good. So the top end of the draw is quite predictable, but the bottom side has got some pretty interesting draws. United have not played Juventus for a long time. That'd be decent. And just looking at pot 1, Madrid, Atletico, Barca, Bayern, Juventus, PSG, Lokomotiv. Pot 3, Liverpool, who we can't get to the quarter-final stage. Schalke, Lyon, Monaco, Ajax, CSKA, PSV, Valencia, and pot 4, Bruges, with their massive trek to the ground. United played there under Louis van Gaal. That was when Wayne Rooney scored. He scored a few goals, and he'd been getting a lot of stick, and he came out the ground and he had a big sulk on. He wouldn't speak to any of the journalists, and then the walk back to the centre of Bruges was like 5 kilometres. And then Inter, that'd be decent. Be quite a tough one though, although Inter Milan are nothing like the team that they were. And once the draw's been made, you've got a couple of hours then until the actual fixtures are known. And it's more complicated this year because there are staggered kick-off times. I'm not really a fan of that. If you've got any questions while we're waiting for the draw to come through about United, please feel free and ask me. Been to all the games. I was on the pre-season tour, 5 games over there. Went to Munich then, and then went to Manchester for the start of the season, that win against Leicester, and then Brighton for my sins. I'm still recovering from that trip to Brighton. And of course, if you go on United We Stand and you travel to European away matches, there's a lot of information. Dale's been working really hard to get all that ready for the draw, and by getting it ready I mean travel and flight plans so that you can save money. So questions are coming through now. Jamie, how does Jose get the best out of this squad? Well, he's not getting the best out of the squad, and it's potentially a very good squad. There's a lot of good players there, and they're just not playing as well as it should be. None of them are as consistent. It's all right beating Manchester City away or Liverpool at home and having these highlights, but as we've seen in the last couple of matches, you know, Paul Pogba's done absolutely nothing. He's gone from being a World Cup winner, and that's frustrating because he's clearly a good player. I think, how do you get the best out of him? Well, you've got to have the players on side. They've got to believe in what you're doing, and most of the players, they don't mind the manager. The team spirit is not that bad. The manager, when you look at him, got quite a miserable persona, but he's just not working at the moment, and it better start working soon. Kieran, what do you think of Martial getting offered a new deal? I'd love Martial to be a success at Manchester United. I think he's a very talented player with lots of attributes. I love watching him run at opponents and beat them. He's had some highlights. Again, he's nowhere near consistent enough. He might argue that he doesn't get started enough to play consistently enough. And he's still quite young. He's only 22. I've just written a piece about him and spoke to Brian McClare about him, and he said he doesn't work hard enough. And if you watch Jose Mourinho on the side during matches when Martial plays, his body language is quite revealing. He gets frustrated, and I think fans do too. I would love to see Martial be a success. I first heard of him when he played for Monaco, and he was brilliant against Juventus, even though Monaco didn't go through. Hello from Korea, Wonjun. Hello, Wonjun. How are you? I owe you some more details, don't I? Just jogged me there, jogged my memory there. Who is your favourite fanzine editor, past and present? Asked Rudy. I love it. My favourite fanzine editor, past and present, dresses up as a clown at children's christenings. Well, the people at United, and Barney Chilton's done Red News for a long time. Barney's a great lad. You know, Chris Robinson and John Daniels and John Paul, who were doing Red Issue. Knew them for many, many years. It's a shame Red Issue is no longer going. Said that at the time when it stopped publishing in January 2015. And there are others. Andrew Ward edited the Case Stand in the early 90s. He went on to become a journalist writing for the Financial Times. And who else? Alan, he did Walking Down the Warwick Road, which was a fanzine around in the early 90s. Patrick, do you think Jose's on board with the new Martial deal? Ooh. I don't think if he would alone have been allowed to make the decision, I don't think he would have given him the new deal. But I think the decision has been made above his head. I know that Ed Woodward put a lot of work into getting Martial. And I remember when it was happening, United sending somebody to Paris and then down to Monaco. They sent Matt Judge to do the deal. And when he came, people were like, who? How much money? But he showed very quickly how good he was. And I went to Les Ulis on the outskirts of Paris, where he's from, at the start of the year, and spoke to people about him, and they told a very different picture to the ones that you might see when you read about Martial being sullen. And I spoke to Martial in America in the summer in Santa Clara, and he's a nice lad. He's just not been very happy at Manchester United, and you can say that about 2 or 3 of the players. I'd love that situation to change, because he is very talented. Who's on the t-shirt, Andy? Remy Moses, the only man I've tried to interview and never got. He's in Manchester. I just like the t-shirt. It was from T-Shirts United, and I've had it quite a while. Any new books in the pipeline? Asks Jamie. Yeah, I've been working on Patrice Evra's autobiography for a few years, so hopefully I have some news about that soon. That's finished. Just going through a process of legal eyes looking at it, and then I've got a couple of others ideas which I've been asked. I can't really say anything until I've signed contracts on them. But as for one, as you're asking, with the players of the 70s, 80s and 90s, yeah, I'd love to do one of United in the noughties. But I just need time. It'll be a few years. But I know the lads who I'd like to ask, and I think, yeah, that could happen. What's the latest on a director of football? Are they going to bring one in? Asks Andrew McCarthy. Well, I first wrote this in December, and I can remember getting a call about it on the way to Basel to watch United. And the role has changed. That was more of an administrative role with no policy and transfers. And the new role which the club are talking about is one which would definitely have influence in transfers. So I think the club's intention is to bring a sporting director in. And that's all I know. I remember a fanzine called the Shankill Skinhead, says Patrick Merrigan. Yes, I do as well. Done by Alex Griffiths, good lad, and Tim Glyn-Jones, who went on to edit Match of the Day magazine. It wasn't around for a long time. It was a good mag, Shankill Skinhead. Named, obviously, after Norman Whiteside. Juventus has just come through. Okay, so Juventus is flashing on my screen, so as I'm talking to you, you are on the ball ahead of me. Right, so here's what I know. Since United last played there, 2003, I think, really good performance. The venue of the greatest ever Manchester United game in 99, which was the Champions League semi-final from 2-0 down to 3-2 up. Very frustrating game there in 96. Alan Boksic was brilliant. I spoke to Gary Neville about this game a few weeks ago, and he said it was the only game in his entire United career where he felt that he couldn't compete with the players who were against him because they were too strong. And Juventus won that game 1-0. So United and Juventus had some real ding-dongs. I went to the new Juventus stadium to see Patrice Evra against Verona at the start of 2016. They've done a really good job on it. The old Dele Alpi was too far from the pitch, and the new one, they've brought it right in against the pitch. It sells out every week. It only holds 40,000, but the atmosphere is really, really good. Juventus, excellent team. I think they're going for an 8th consecutive title. Cristiano Ronaldo, they has obviously gone there, but they've got a very stable team, and they've had that for several years. I know they sold the right back to Arsenal, Lichtsteiner. Marchisio, I think, is a free agent now, and Bonucci obviously went and then moved on. And Evra has gone as well. But Alexandro, who definitely liked the idea of joining Manchester United, he's there. Dybala is a very, very good player. And Allegri is obviously a coach who's been doing it season after season. I like Turin as a city. I think it's beautiful. So I'm quite pleased about that. However, it will be a tough game because they're one of the best 3 or 4 teams in Europe, and they brought Ronaldo so that they could win the Champions League, because they reached the final in 15 when they got beat by Barca in Berlin, and then against Real Madrid in 17 in Cardiff. So a good one, a hard one actually. And I'm just trying to think of the other current Juventus players. I was reading a lot about them and being told a lot about them. They have a very, very tough pre-season and fitness regime. So their current success is not done by fluke. They work harder than any other team in Italy. And even players who've gone there like Mandzukic or Evra, who've been very successful at their previous clubs, they found it very, very difficult, given the demands that Juventus put on their players, that they want you in the team hotel all the time, you barely ever see your families. That's not going to work, is it? But that will be good. I remember Juventus in 96, it was pretty rough, and they do have a fringe, the Droghi, who absolutely despise Liverpool, but that's going back to Heysel. And I spoke to some of them when they played in Barcelona a couple of years ago, and they were pretty rum. So Juventus, any other questions? I can see them coming up the side of the screen. And if you tell me about the draw, I'm just trying to get more information now as it's coming through. Okay, so Cristiano Ronaldo is the line which people are going with. We'll wait a couple of hours for the fixtures to come through. I remember that game really well in 96. So I've been to all them Juventus games since then, but I remember reading about a trip to Juventus in a book called Among the Thugs by Bill Bufford. Probably got it behind me somewhere. The first chapter about Juventus is one of the best pieces of writing I think I've read. It's about United going there with a big mob of hooligans for the semi-final of the 1984 Cup Winners' Cup. And Juventus had Platini. They're one of the best teams in the world. And though Bufford, who's a very good writer, his account is disputed, but it's Very, very good reading. The next question is, what's the script with United offering Martial a 5-year deal? Surely that undermines the manager's wishes. Yeah, well, I don't think the manager's made a decision. From the club's perspective, I think they feel that if you give all the power to the manager, which they did do with Moyes, and I spoke to Ed Woodward about this, and he said this was the model they were going for. But when they gave it all to Van Gaal, and he just started selling players and purging talent, it's expensive, and it undermines or prevents any long-term philosophy if the manager's going to be changed every couple of years. So I know there were a lot of people at the time saying we've got to get rid of him, to the point that United would have had no players left had they listened to the fans in 2014. But I do get the point that Martial's 22. He's clearly talented. He's not in a good moment. But then neither was Luke Shaw. And Luke Shaw has been United's best player so far this season. We're only 3 games in. And my issue is that who is making that decision, and is it being made for footballing reasons? And I think that the manager is also accepting that he doesn't have the power when it comes to transfers. And again, there's 2 sides to that. I think if you just let Jose Mourinho have absolute power, he probably signed Fabio Contrao every week and a load of 29-year-olds. And what if Mourinho's not there in a year or 2? I can see the logic in it. But it also goes against, the manager said he would have been happy for him to go. I think there's a shift here. You had the Ferguson model where if a player wasn't happy or was upsetting the apple cart, then be it Van Nistelrooy, Beckham or Keane, Ferguson said, be off with you. But players now have more power. Players are now harder to sign. And I think United are adapting to those changes. And as I've said earlier on, I'd love it if Martial came good. Talking of stadiums, are there any updates on Old Trafford, expansion of the Sir Bobby Charlton stand? Not since I wrote about it in February. I'd seen plans for it. The plans look brilliant. And they are there. I think it's just the Glazers have got to give them the go-ahead. I've seen them with my own eyes. They look really good. But the club on the record are saying nothing. I spoke to Richard Arnold, the managing director, and he said he felt it would happen, but there was no time scale given. Carsten, why can't Mourinho get the defence right? He's got a lot of centre-backs. I know it's frustrating, isn't it? And he oversaw Bailey and Eric Bailly. In fact, they're both the same person. Victor Lindelof, I meant. And they were 30 million each, and they've not been as impressive as anybody hoped. I think they've both got their talents. But Bailly gets injured too much, not that he wants that. Lindelof's having a stinking time at the moment. I thought he looked good in the World Cup for Sweden, what I saw of him. And I spoke to people at Benfica about him. I did a lot of research, and they were glowing when they were talking about him. Valencia. Who's your favourite Irish player who's played for the club? Roy Keane, next question. Keane was brilliant, wasn't he? Good point, Andy, but he was right about Toby Alderweireld. Yeah, I think Alderweireld, I spoke to people at Tottenham about him, and I think he would have been an improvement on the players we've got. I wouldn't write off. I know everyone's just hammers Jones and Smalling and Rojo. Rojo had a really good spell a couple of years ago, but again, he's just getting injured, and the best United teams have had stable central defensive partnerships in the main. Vidic and Ferdinand, Bruce and Pallister being the main 2. And when you're changing all the time, that's not a good thing, and that's happening. I think if one player was to go, it would be Chris Smalling. But United have got no intention of selling him. Valencia. Oof, right. So I saw Valencia play 5 times live last season and went there twice. Once to see Andreas Pereira. Valencia were excellent last season. Gonzalo Guedes is their best player. He was on loan from PSG. Got a young team. The Mestalla is one of my favourite stadiums in Europe. It's a towering 55,000 seater stadium. They're building a new ground 3 kilometres away, but they've been building it since 2008, and it looks like the Colosseum in Rome. Nothing's been done on it for 8 years now, and it started to crash when Spain's economic crisis kicked in 2008. Valencia is a fullback factory. They've got really good fullbacks. I'm going to help you with my research now. This is what you get, you see. Valencia's a great city. I went there a lot when Gary Neville was there. Couldn't write off the things I knew. So the ideal 11 for Valencia is Rodrigo, Carlos Soler. United looked at Soler last year. Danny Parejo is a captain. Kondogbia has been very good. Probably their most important player. Gaya's a good fullback. Neto, the goalkeeper. Garcia Toral, Marcelino is the manager. I spoke to him when he was at Villarreal, and the most impressive thing he did was, he was good at Villarreal, 6th and 4th, but when he came in at Valencia, he just took them from a team that had finished 12th twice and took them right up to a Champions League finish last year. Valencia should be in the Champions League. They're owned by Peter Lim, who also half-owned Salford City. Let's see what else we've got. Questions coming through Valencia. So Juventus and Valencia, that is tough. That is very tough. You've got 2 tough teams there, and I wouldn't be surprised if United lost to either of them. But I quite like the fact that United are going to be properly tested, no pissing about. I'd rather we come up against teams like Valencia and Turin. To get to Valencia, you can go by Barcelona, you can go by Madrid. The AVI train is 90 minutes from Valencia to Madrid. The Euromed is 3 hours from Barcelona. Could even get a ferry from Ibiza or Mallorca if you were really adventurous, but we don't know when that's going to be. They're seasonal. I've not watched Valencia play so far this season. I was going to watch them play on Sunday at Espanyol, but I went to Girona against Real Madrid instead. Espanyol won that and played very well, if I remember rightly. So let's see who the third one is. Imagine if we can't get into, can we? But any other questions? Please send them through. Yeah, Espanyol beat Valencia 2-0. I watched a bit of Valencia's first game against Atletico Madrid, but on the TV. Valencia's going to be a tough game. Who would your best central defensive pairing be, Andy? Asks Dave Stewart. I think that's a really hard question. There's times where I thought Phil Jones in league games has looked absolutely solid, and then bang, he gets injured. I've been really frustrated with Chris Smalling. Then he scores in the Manchester derby. Rojo, I'd almost given up on him, and then he had a 6-month spell, and then he got injured. So there's a theme developing here. Bailly's very raw. I think he's fast, he's strong, but his positioning was dreadful against Brighton, and not for the first time, and he's a little bit rash. And I can see attributes for all of them, and I'm told that Axel Tuanzebe, who I interviewed pre-season in America, a really nice lad. I'm told by people who train with him at Carrington all the time that he's massively talented, but he's gone to Villa this season. So this uncertainty and lack of me being able to say him and him probably shows that there's a problem there, because when it was Vidic and Ferdinand, it was Vidic and Ferdinand, and you even had really talented players coming through like Gerard Piqué, and they get occasional chances, but it was Vidic and Ferdinand, it was Bruce and Pallister. There were more changes in the treble winning season, granted, and I can see why the manager wanted to bring in another central defender. I'm not seeing enough of Harry Maguire to know that it'd be a big improvement. But Alderweireld was, I think, would have been an improvement. The last team, young boys, brilliant. Oh, I like that. I'm having that. Definitely. I've never been to Bern, and I like it when Manchester United get paired with new teams. I'm just checking. I've got a feeling in the 60s or even the 50s that Manchester United might have played in Bern, but I might be mixing it up with a youth team tournament. Yeah, no, there's no... Can't see any Bern there. So that will be... Yeah, not played Bern before. Played Burton Swifts, Burton United and Burton Wanderers. I've just learned that Manchester United have played 4 teams called Burton. So Switzerland, well, depends when it'll be. If it's in December, it's going to be very different to February. Do you think we have enough goal scorers in the team? Ask Raul. No. I think we lost Ibrahimovic, who was very good when he was there, and I know Lukaku came in. But I felt there were times last year when United were too dependent on Lukaku, and when he fell out of form, maybe November, October, there was no real backup. I think that Martial, Rashford should be contributing more goals. Rashford especially, as a striker. Sanchez should be scoring more. All these players are really talented. Lingard, he had a really good run around Christmas, but he should be scoring on a more consistent basis. So I think it's not just been a problem for last season. I think the season before, you had Ibrahimovic, and then the next top scorer scored something like a third of the goals. So I think your point's a right one. More players should be scoring more goals. Darren says, which away trip is the best of the 3 sides we've been drawn? Well, I've not been to Bern. Switzerland will be expensive, be quite easy to get to. If it's December, it will be freezing. It's not that far from Turin, just on the other side of the Alps. Turin would have a brilliant atmosphere, although Bern would as well, because Manchester United are coming to town. I like Turin as a city. I spoke to players who've played there and they think it's boring, but I think the centre, with all its Baroque architecture, is really nice. And I like Italy. And I think Turin has improved a lot since it staged the Winter Olympics as well. If we're going there in September, as we did in '96, it could be warm and sunny. Valencia is a great city. The draw actually excites me quite a lot. My big worry with the draw is not the places we're going to or the experience that we'll get as fans. It's been knocked out because Valencia are a good team and Juventus are a very good team. If I was choosing one, Valencia. I'm going to go to all 3. I'm going to do diaries from all 3 if you'd like me to do that. There are plenty of goal scorers at United, they're just not scoring goals, says Merrick. Yeah, well, I've just said that. Yeah, there's a lot of talented players there. They should be scoring a lot more. H. Huss, thoughts on Shaw getting called up for England? I think it's great. I think it'll lift his confidence. He's a confidence player. I tweeted the other day that he'd been United's best player. I tweeted that after 2.5 games. And I think a lot of people agreed with that, but it's still very early, and I take that point. And a few people were saying, are you joking? But I watched San Jose's reserve winger skin him last month in Santa Clara. And that for me was the point where I thought, he's gone. He's just gone. He's not going to be good enough. And I've always backed him and supported him. And I've interviewed Shaw several times. I like him. He's a really good talker. He's very honest. Maybe too honest for his own good. And it's weird because this happened with De Gea. I backed him and backed him and backed him. There was a game at Chelsea in February 12. And he had a terrible first half. And I thought at that point, you know what? This is just not going to work out. It was the first time I thought it. And then he had a brilliant second half. I think the final score was 3-3. And De Gea's been De Gea ever since, pretty much. But sure, I'm really pleased for him. It's one less worry. I don't think anyone would have really complained had he been sold. Had Alexandro come in. So one less problem. I think he's only going to get better. He's always had the talent. Just got to believe it, and maybe all the criticism he's been getting, especially from the manager, may have the desired effect. And I hope he matures as a person and as a player as well, and just has that absolute winning mentality, which I think you need if you're going to be a successful one at Manchester United. Who or how could solve United's right wing issue? Is from the Whistling Spy. There's no natural right-sided player in the side. Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Why bring Alexis Sanchez in when it disrupted the team? But then Sanchez is a top player, in theory. Needs to do it this season. I think that's why the manager wanted Perisic to come in. Because there are several left-sided players, and left-sided players being asked to play on the right. So it is an issue. I think that Valencia is not getting any younger, and while he's very strong, I think asking him to push up like he did in his earlier years, I know he's playing at right back now, it's just not going to happen. Shaw's the best left back in England, and it's great people are now realising that. Yeah, it's a fair comment. I think he's got to do a lot more than have 3 good games to be seen as the best left back in England. What, in the Premier League? Because I don't think he's at the moment. I think you've got to do it for a season, and I think he's got the talent to. And I remember him coming with Southampton, and he was very, very good. He just needs to do it. He started the 15-16 season very well, and he got injured in Eindhoven. And he was very unlucky. And when I spoke to him in 17 in LA, he just said, I won't wish the injuries I've had on anybody. It was quite heartfelt how he said it, and he's right. Thoughts on Fosu Mensah being loaned out again? I'm told he played very, very well for Palace at the weekend. Whereas when I was last at Palace, when we came back from being 2 down in February, he didn't start the game because a reserve player started ahead of him. So I need to get up to speed to find out whether United think Fosu Mensah has got a long-term future at the club. Any other questions? Just seeing now. I think that back to the question on the wide player, I think United was serious about signing Griezmann, and he can play in the centre, but he can play on the right and he can play on the left. And Griezmann, I know for a fact, wanted to come to Manchester United, and then he changed his mind, and he did so because Atletico had their ban upheld in Europe. So like Perisic, he was very, very versatile. But for the days of Kanchelskis, even Ronaldo on the right. Jones' injury issues are going on too long. Should he be sold? You know, every time you say it, he plays 15 games and does really well. Then he gets injured. I have some sympathy for players who get injured, because Jones is a very brave player, and I think that's a quality. I don't think you could ever call him a coward, and I don't think he gets injured on purpose. I spoke to him in Munich after the friendly, and he spoke well. Just frustrating for him as well, that he gets injured so much. Would I take Maguire for Jones? Not with absolute conviction, no. Not the money that Leicester would have wanted. No. Now, if you asked me if I'd take Raphael Varane, I'd say yes, because he's probably the best central defender in the world, and I think Varane's only 25. But Maguire, I just worry that he would have been a fashionable signing, because he played well for England in the World Cup. But who did England play? Who were brilliant? Who did they beat? Who were brilliant over 90 minutes? I know there was a lot of hysteria about it, and England did well, but I'm not. I don't think that Maguire is the next great world centre half. I'll call it a day in another 5 minutes or so. If you've got any questions, send them in now. I hope you find this interesting. This is my office where I do a lot of my work, so there's loads of books on football. Old Marseille's ground, loads of United books there. Some United We Stand covers, and a award there for when United We Stand was made British fanzine of the year. Evans and Raphael should never have been sold. I agree with you. Not even saying that Raphael should be a starter all the time, but I went to see him in Lyon in March, and he never wanted to leave. That was Van Gaal, which brings me back to the point of the manager having all the power. And Evans is a very good player, but you know, he was sold when his stock was at its lowest, because he'd had all that hoo-ha with the spitting at Newcastle. But he's a very good player. He's a United fan. He didn't cost a penny. He lives in Manchester with his family still. And what did United get for him? Nothing. What did they get for Raphael? Peanuts. Tough group, says Dean Scott. Yeah, it is. Evans is terrible, says H. Huss. Yeah, is it? Well, we will agree to disagree on that. I think if you're terrible, you don't play hundreds of games for Manchester United, win Premier Leagues, and then go to Leicester City on 100 grand a week. Is there a reason why De Gea hasn't re-signed yet? I think all the signs are that he's going to, especially now Real Madrid have bought Courtois. He's under no pressure to. His stock's very high. I think if you really asked him, would he like to go to Real Madrid and do a straight swap? I think that answer would long be a yes. I know in the summer, and I spoke to him in Michigan, that he really valued the support that he gets from United fans, because he got a lot of stick for Spain in the summer, and he's been really supported at United, both when he was having a rough time. Away fans should be happy about a trip to Turin and Madrid. Is that a question? Yeah. Turin and Valencia. Well, in terms of the trips, yeah. I think they're both good. Getting loads of questions now. Andy, whose agent did Woodward meet at March? Interesting, who is a high-profile player? I'm not going to say that because I need to keep my contacts. Simple as that. And it wasn't Woodward who met him. It was someone else. Do you reckon Mourinho wanted to get another defender to play free at the back? If so, what combination is there now? Should be played, as all of them have deficiencies. Yeah, they do. They all have strengths and they all have deficiencies. I'd almost like to mix them all in a bag and get two perfect centre-halves out of them. because, you know, Rojo's got a brilliant warrior spirit, but he gets injured all the time. Jones too, but they all have too many errors in them, unfortunately. And Bailly at Brighton, jeez. Would he have played free at the back? I don't think so, but I know he's liked that formation, and I know Van Gaal tried it and liked it as well. It's quite a brave formation. Would De Gea return to Atletico? No, I don't think so. Atletico let De Gea down quite badly. He never spoke about it publicly, but they tried to force him out on loan to Numancia, to Queen's Park Rangers. So he's not an idol there, even though he was very, very good. And I think he's quite happy in Manchester. He's good friends with Juan Mata and Ander Herrera, and he's got a good goalkeeping coach who he has a very good relationship with now. Just to even things out, Johnny Evans was a good player. Got a lot of stick from Twitter managers. Yeah, I'd agree with that. House of Style. All right, House. Bring a smile to my face, mate. Good to see you on here. Any questions, House? House of Style is a lad who wrote for United We Stand for 20 years. How do you feel that that Mourinho playing Herrera at the back was a message to Woodward? Yes, but James Scowcroft, who was at the game and writes for United We Stand, said he could see a real logic in it, and he explained to me why. And James has played 300 matches in the Premier League. He's not a Twitter manager, so you'd have to ask Mourinho that one. Shouldn't you be having a shave with them Harry's blades? Yes, I should, Anthony. Gomes, Chong, are you going to make the first team in the next 2 seasons or be moved on? Gomes was really good in Phoenix pre-season and was praised by his manager when he came on. He changed the game, but he also said he was nowhere near ready for the first team. In 2 seasons, maybe that will change. Why does Mourinho struggle to get consistent performances from Pogba? Says Adam. Gosh, you tell me. Great one week and then anonymous the next. Is there scope to do a live podcast with the Monkey Bus lads at some point? Yes, there is. Did one last year on the way to Swansea. 9,000 people watched it, which quite worried. And Andy, are you into basketball? Not really. I was in California last month and I read up a lot about the Golden State Warriors and the Lakers, and I stayed with a lad who goes and watches the Lakers, and he was very excited about this season. I would probably go to 1 basketball game per season. I took my daughter to see Barcelona against Real Madrid last year. In the 1980s, I went to Manchester United's basketball. Quite a lot. They played in Stretford Sports Centre. They used to get 1,500. I can even remember the names of the players. Jeff Jones, Colin Irish. They seem to be big stars. But United have long given up on the basketball team. But I know that in Turkey and Greece and the Balkans, basketball is massive. And I'd love to go to like Red Star Partizan in the basketball. Do you have a preference for a director of football United could bring? Asked Dean Scott. I think Gary Neville would be brilliant. Don't think he'd do it because he's too busy with all his businesses and Salford, but I think Gary would be good. Edwin van der Sar is someone who Gary Neville think would be good. I want United to make a basketball team like Real Madrid. Yeah, but basketball in England is nowhere near as popular as it is in Spain. So most of the English basketball teams, they get like 1,000, 2,000 maximum. In Spain, you've got several teams who get over 10,000 average. It's a much bigger sport. And basketball, as the next question points out, is bigger than football in countries in Eastern Europe. Yep, I know that. And in parts of Spain, you're correct. Like Vitoria, where Baskonia play. You see, I know a bit about basketball now. I went to Girona on Sunday night, and basketball was more popular in Girona in the 90s and noughties than football. And Girona are now a La Liga team. Basketball was 3 times more as popular. Serious one, asks Anthony. Do you think United of today is remotely close to the United we fell in love with as kids? I think it's much changed, Tony, in many ways. You know, going to the game, the atmosphere, the prices, although ticket prices have levelled off and even come down in the last couple of years for away matches. I also think that people remember when they were young, when they were 17 was like the perfect time in their life, when everything was great. And I can remember going to away games for the first time and thinking, this is just brilliant, going to Norwich. I can also remember people moaning about allocations, the team, the atmosphere. In 1989, when United We Stand started, you see the same arguments over and over again. It's not a new thing. People moaning about part-time fans, people moaning about glory hunters in 1993. The demographic of football has changed a lot, and parts of that definitely frustrate me, but I still think there's a lot of really good lads go to football, and girls as well. But I went to Munich for the 60th memorial in February, and there were probably 1,500 United fans there, and I was quite saddened that a lot of them do not go to games anymore. And my answer's probably conflicted, because whether I like it or not, it's my job now as well. So I go and travel and watch the team and love my job, but writing about football is also how I earn money. It's how I put food on the table for my family. And so I want to like it. I think that there were some really good games last season, and there were some really poor games under Ferguson. But there were major gripes under Ferguson as well. I can remember it kicking off about the PLC, and obviously the Glazers was a massive issue as well. But when United win a big match or come from behind or get an equaliser at City or Anfield, I really do feel it here. And I'll go and watch Barca a lot for work. I just don't feel anything. Even though they're brilliant, I just don't feel it. And I've got my daughters now. One's a United fan. One of them's saying that she wants to support Barcelona. And I'm just not having that. Yeah, but Messi's better than any United player. No. You're supporting United, love. You don't have a choice. Andy, do you think the atmosphere is better at Old Trafford this season? Yeah, I thought it was good against Leicester. And the other night, I think the effort that the club and the lads in the Red Army group have put in have paid off. I thought the atmosphere at home to Liverpool in February was the best for years. So yeah, I think it's been pretty promising actually. I think there's genuine goodwill. Do you talk to the Red Issue lads? Asks H-Us. Of course I do. Why wouldn't I? We have very different personalities, but yeah, I've known them for a long, long time, and I like and respect them. And as I said earlier on in this, I think that Red Issue should have carried on. But we were close to Red Issue for years. We started the coaches together to away matches in 1991, and we might have very different outlooks on things, but we would agree with a lot of things as well. And I'd like Red Issue to come back. There was a little bit of talk recently about bringing out maybe a one-off. Have you ever interviewed a footballer and thought, you're full of shit, mate? Asked Technics. I've probably interviewed 500, 600, 700 footballers now, and I can honestly count on one hand the really disappointing ones. Johan Gourcuff, the French player, I just thought, what a wanker. But he might have been having a bad day. He might have thought I was a knob. Normally, when you're interviewing players, and I tend to interview them for good publications or respected outlets, they're trying to put across their best side to you. And you can benefit from that. And I often benefit from, because I'm writing for English language publications or outlets, I'm mindful, and I see this quite a lot in Spain, from players or managers. They want to be in the Premier League, so they're putting on they make an effort with you. But your Gourcuff was frustrating. I'd cut him some slack. I don't think he's a bad person. Anyone else? I'll have to think about that. I tell you what's worse. Rather than the people mix zones, it's a horrible environment where after a game you try to get an interview. I just don't like it. You get 2 minutes of talk and. Andy, do United fans still remember Ji-sung Park, the Korean football legend from Korea? Of course they remember him. Top man. Andy, what do you think about the other football fan channels like Arsenal TV or Full Time Devils? I honestly don't watch them. I'm sure they're very popular with people who do. I've got enough on my plate. I've got 2 young children. I travel a lot. I work very hard to do my job as a football journalist as well as I can do. Underneath here, park wherever you may be, you eat dog in your own country. So I think that's in response to a previous question. Do you think countries like the USA and China are terrible at football despite their population? I think terrible is quite a strong word. I was told by someone who knows recently that US not reaching the finals cost Nike $50 million. I think the US are far better than China. China should be far, far better. But if you're just going to judge it on population, India are even worse. I think India's got 1 billion population and they're ranked far lower than China. But yeah, they should be miles better. Football is getting more popular in both. I've been to India to watch football. My friend Ash Westwood led Bengaluru to the title twice. And but the standards, crap. Zar from Red Issue is still alive and kicking on Twitter. It was my favourite mag back in the day. Yes, I know Zar from Red Issue is still alive and kicking. I'm well aware. I'm not going to say his full name because he doesn't put it on there. But yeah, I'm aware. Alan Keegan, why do we have this corporate prick? Why can we not get a proper red getting the stadium rocking? That's from Ian Lewis. I think Alan, to be fair to him, is a United fan. He's a Manchester lad. And I think that if you are doing the announcing, you might not always be able to do exactly what you want because you've got people pulling you in different directions. I think the music's improved a lot at Old Trafford. I think the playlists are decent. Will the away following survive the club's clampdown? Yeah, I think it will. Ask Colin O'Callum. Yeah, I absolutely think it will. I don't buy the death of the away support at all. I've been told a completely different version of what was happening at Brighton, and the club's version is that they want tickets to go to the right people. Do you have any insights to suggest Ronaldo was ever close to re-signing for United? Ben Cliff. Well, I know for a fact that Ferguson thought he was coming back in the summer of 13. My source is very good on that one. But he didn't come back and Ferguson resigned or stepped down. I think with the US, they prioritise other sports. Football's not even in the top 4 sport there. I'm not sure I agree with you now. I think football's becoming very popular. Baseball's in decline, boxing's in decline. But the football as a participation sport in the US is massive now. I think it will feed through and become more and more successful. I think in Christian Pulisic, why don't you ask me about him? They've got a very good player. And he will go on to become, I think, potentially one of the best players in Europe. He's doing very well at Dortmund. I'm just scrolling back because I had a load of questions. Which defenders would you like to get in? I would like to get in Raphael Varane and Sergio Ramos. They're the best 2 defenders in the world. Do you think we would have passed Liverpool in the European Cups had Ronaldo stayed at United? Good question. Really good question. I think probable, but the European Cup is it's a cup competition and there's an element of knockout. But yeah, I think it's a good question, and I think United could have. Then again, Ronaldo played in 09 and we were battered. And when he didn't play in 11, we were battered even more. So we were reaching the final with him. Baseball is an extremely American sport. I don't think football will overtake it. Fair enough. Do you follow the United Rant podcast? Ask Nishant. No, I'm aware of it, but no. As I said, I am writing about football from 9 until 7 pretty much every day. I work really hard. I travel to 90 games a season around the world, usually between 15 and 18 countries a year. My wife has no interest in football, which I quite like, and I just don't have time to consume everything that's out there. There's loads out there. And we do the United We Stand podcast as well, as some of you may know. What made you into making United We Stand? I was 15 and I felt that football fans didn't have a voice. Now you almost have too many voices. And I felt angry that I'd go away to Nottingham Forest and it cost me £4 to stand on a shit terrace where I couldn't even see the pitch because of a big floodlight. And my wage on my paper round was £2.20. So that's twice my week's wages to watch football. And decisions were being made on behalf of football fans by the British government. And I felt that they felt that all football fans were idiots, and I wasn't an idiot. And I felt football fans needed a voice, and that was my drive to start United We Stand back in 1989. Didn't think it would be going 29 years later, but it is. Thanks to a very good team of contributors, sellers, and people still buying it with a thing called money. It's great. I love the fact that people still support it and buy it and don't think that everything should be free. So I keep saying 5 more minutes. You've got last minute for questions, and then I'm going to go and have some food and maybe plan trips to Turin and Valencia and Bern. If you've got any questions about those places, get on the United We Stand forum, because there's loads of very good practical information. Another question about Red Issue. Do you ever consider Red Issue and others as rival fanzines? Well, of course they were rivals, but we had a good relationship with Red Issue. When you stood outside the ground for 20 years, standing there in all weathers and facing the same sort of problems, then I think you develop a respect for each other. And when I started United We Stand as a kid, Red Issue were very good to me. I was only 15, and they were really good. Chris and John, and so Red News now is still going, and I've got so much time for Barney who does it. I really respect him. And so rivals in the sense that, yeah, it's another Manchester United fanzine, but so what? I'm absolutely fine with that. Are you really an important voice for United fans about England? Don't think so. That's from Nishan. I appreciate the sentiment of your comment. I work hard. I try and be as informed as I can. I speak to people. I pick up the phone every day. I try and be as informed as I can to do the job to the best of my ability. I can't write everything that I know because I have to protect sources and my information. Sometimes you have to read between the lines when you read my articles, and that's basically it. What's the most threatening away ground you've been to? Mine was Leeds in 92, 93, says Ben Cliff. Leeds in 91, I went, Manchester! Someone whacked me and I was on the floor. So that wasn't great, was it? Zagreb in 99 was scary. Croatia had not been long out of a war, and there was a pretty angry atmosphere there. And Galatasaray away in 93, I didn't see the game, got locked up there, did nothing wrong. I mean, there's some places what can be pretty scary even now. You've just got to have your wits about you. But I find with trouble, even if it's going off 20 metres away, you can just stand back from it. So last year I was at the Birmingham Derby, between Villa and Birmingham, and it kicked off really close to me. But you can just sidestep it. But if you want Leeds was pretty scary, really scary. Alright, so there's lots of other comments coming through here and people saying thank you, and I'm not going to read them out because it's not my style, but I really appreciate what you're saying. Do you want me to do more of these videos? Do you want me to do like one every 2 weeks or something like that? Have you been watching the videos that I've been doing from away matches? I always appreciate your feedback. Podcast, magazine. I'm thinking I'll go to Turin and Valencia and Bern and do videos from there, put them out there. I think it's important that we go to the games because not everyone's able to go to the matches, and we show what it's like for real fans. And I know I'm not outside the ground now, but I think we do offer something different, and we work hard to do that. So we're getting some very nice comments coming through. So thanks for joining us. Spread the word. Subscribe to this channel. This is United We Stand's YouTube channel. I know it's quite small at the moment, but when I put the videos onto Twitter, they get tens of thousands of people watching. So you just need to spread the word about them and support what we do. We appreciate that, because without that, there would be no United We Stand. So I'm going to say goodbye to you now, let you get on with your evenings or afternoons, depending on where you are in the world. And maybe I'll join you for another chat in a week or two. Until then, goodbye and thank you.